Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, it finally happened. It's here. We got it. Let's go. We have a trade, an actual trade in the NBA. We are a few weeks out from the trade deadline still, but the Lakers make it. I'm just so happy, Keith. It's not just the fact that it's the Lakers. A trade happened, and we've been waiting for this day.
And it's not a salary dump. Like it's not some team just trying to save tax money or something. So this is great. And I love too that the little Adam Silver snippet works because we have an early trade is what he says in that. Because believe it or not, guys, it's really hard for us to find a snippet of him just saying we have a trade to announce.
It was so difficult to find that. I bet if I kept looking, but once I found that, I just kind of said,
you had to run with it. But it fits because it is an early trade. We're like still 2.5 weeks from the deadline, so this is perfect, man. I'm super duper excited to get into all this details of it. I'll let you cover those, and then we'll dive in.
Sure, yeah. So the Lakers are trading Kendrick Nunn and 3 second-round picks. Now, 2 of these second-round picks are pretty late. We're talking 2028 and 2029, and so they're far off. And then one of the second rounders is the 2023 Chicago second-round pick, which could actually be a pretty decent second rounder. So Kendrick Nunn and those 3 picks going out to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Rui Hachimura, the former 9th overall pick in the 2019 draft. He'll be out of contract this summer. Word is that the Lakers would like to keep him, would like to either sign him to an extension or hang on to him past this year. So it's not just a short-term thing for them.
We'll get into that extension stuff because that is not a real thing, my friend. That was sloppy reporting.
I saw that and I thought the same thing. I'm like, they're not going to be able to do an extension there. They're going to have to sign it. But in any event, that was what was out there, was that they want to do an extension with him. But that's not really the case. Right.
Yeah. So let's talk the basketball part of this first, because I think that, ostensibly we're a basketball show, so we should probably talk things that happen actually with the ball and on the court. This is a rebalancing of the roster and rotation for the Lakers. They have 9 million guards and 1 true forward-sized guy in LeBron, and then some bigs. And it's like, and none of their guards are really like 6'5", 6'6" guards that are big enough to even really play up all that often. So, and I know you know this better than I do, obviously, and probably better than most. How many games has it been LeBron, insert big man X here? Right now it's Thomas Bryant, who's really playing well. And I have thoughts on that too later if we have time. And then 3 guys who are under 6'4" or 6'4" and under, I should say, out on the court. And then sometimes they close games with LeBron at the 5, and it's like Gulliver's Travels, and like he's like marching around with the Lilliputians out there. So this is huge for them just to get another guy with some size that can play. Like it's so important because they really do get to rebalance the roster now, and it's funny. I saw some people say, well, it doesn't matter. Kendrick Nunn doesn't play. That's not true. Kendrick Nunn has been playing. He's been playing for the better part of, I want to say, at least the last 2 months for the Lakers. But essentially, you're trading guard wing depth for forward depth. And that's really important in my mind.
Yeah, we've been saying since back in July over on Lakers Nation that the Lakers roster was completely imbalanced, that they needed more wings, that they had too many guards. It felt like the roster was put together as though a Russell Westbrook trade was coming, and then it never happened. And so now they were left with a roster where, like you said, there were games where we would see Patrick Beverley, Russell Westbrook, Kendrick Nunn, Dennis Schroeder. I think there were moments where all 4 of them were on the floor at the same time. We definitely saw 3 of them out there at the same time.
And if not all 4, you might have them out there with like 3 with Austin Reeves or 3 with Lonnie Walker or somebody like that. Yeah.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that where Reeves, who is a 2, Lonnie, who is a 2, were being asked to play essentially the 4. And really, both Reeves and Walker have rarely been able to play the 2 in recent months. Now, both are hurt right now, but they haven't been able to play the 2 nearly as often as they did at the beginning of the season. They've been asked to play the 3 where they haven't been as effective, 6'5" and 6'4", respectively, for those 2 guys. So the Lakers roster has been massively undersized. And so they really needed to add another wing player. And Hachimura at 6'8" has some physicality to him, and he should bring them at least that. He's not a perfect player by any means, but this is a team that badly needed another wing.
Yeah, he is a true four who can also play a little bit of three.
Yeah.
That's how I look at him at this point in his career. And I think this is big for LeBron. I think this is big for Anthony Davis. Those small ball lineups work when there's something you throw out there for the last 3 to 5 minutes of each half. But when you're playing it for 10 minutes of each half, it starts to lose its effectiveness because then it's like, all right, let's just run a wing guard pick and roll and go after whoever it is we want to go after and just not even think about it and go into those series. And that makes it really hard. So, I think Hachimura, if we get into his game a little bit, it's funny because now just the way these things go, there's all these people like he's not even good, and then he gets traded. And this is not a knock on Lakers fans because this is every fan base. It's like, oh man, I actually looked and he's better than I thought, right? Like,
Sure.
there's a lot of that going on today. But I do think for some people, like it's true. I think some people are like, wow, he is better than I thought. That said, his numbers are this is the damn lies statistics kind of part for me, where it's like just this week, I think he scored 16 points, 0 points, and then 30 points or something like that.
Ride that roller coaster.
Yeah, right. So, and if you look at his game log, it's not always quite that drastic, but there's a lot of 20 points, 9 points, and it's my go-to guy for this for years was Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a 20 point per game scorer because he scores 30 one night and 10 the next, and that averages 20, and off you go. And everybody's like, well, just give me 20 every night. But that said, Hachimura can shoot. He's probably going to join this team as instantly one of the better shooters on the team, right? He's probably in the top 5, I would guess, of shooters now.
His 3-point percentage hasn't been what it was last year.
Yeah,
but he can be effective. He's 33% and change from three this year, but he's more of a mid-range shooter. That's kind of his bread and butter.
He'll be better, I think, from 3 too, because he's going to have LeBron and Russ and guys like that setting him up versus trying to dribble into a lot of created shots, which is what he's been this year. For those who don't know, he has not started this year. He's come solely off the Wizards bench all season long. And basically he comes in when they're healthy, when Porzingis and Kuzma sit, he comes into the game, and it's kind of almost like let him run a lot of the offense, through him, where it's even if he's not, dribbling it up, we're running our set to get him the ball on the wing and let him kind of create. So he's a lot of self-created shots, and he'll look better when he's getting shots created for him. He played well with Russ a couple years ago too. He actually did quite well in minutes with Russ. So my guess would be probably, just because this is almost always how this works, unless it's a true, top end starter guy, probably come off the bench, at least initially, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I think, though, you're going to get a lot of minutes in games, very meaningful minutes, where it's Davis, Hachimura, LeBron, and 2 guards. I don't know who those 2 guards will be, but it'll be 2 of them. If it's defense that you need, probably Beverly's out there. If it's offense you need, probably be Reeves, especially if it's more shooting you need. If it's just another creator, it might be Dennis Schroeder. But this is now a whole new level of lineup versatility, rebalanced roster that Darvin Ham hasn't had all season. And that, sometimes it's, even if it's not the biggest superstar blockbuster move, just making moves that make sense around the margins. Like that's where it is. And these, quite frankly, are the moves the Lakers have not done the last 2 years. They've been, we're not making those smaller moves around the edges. And that's where it just gets super messy for them.
This, I think the domino effect for this, as I mentioned earlier, Austin Reeves, Lonnie Walker, both been much more effective when they've been 2s, when they've been in that role, as opposed to being asked to play up at the 3. And I think that beyond just the impact that Hachimura brings, the added benefit is that you are going to be, it doesn't mean they're never going to play the 3 again, but you're going to see more often where they're able to go and play their natural position, and you're not undersized out there. And the overall impact on the roster is probably going to be greater than what Hachimura himself would bring.
Yeah, I think too, because I do want to, this has nothing to do with the trade, but I just want to touch on it. I think Thomas Bryant has earned the They should at least explore Thomas Bryant
Him and
stays in
AD.
the starting five when
Hmm.
AD comes back. Because I think too, AD at the five, right, wrong, or indifferent, he doesn't really want to do it. He's been very open about that throughout the course of his career. And I don't have anything to back this. It just feels like the more you play him at the five, the bigger of a beating he takes, the more likely he is he gets hurt. And the reason why for that is the five man has to do a lot more. It doesn't matter who the five man is, but you have to be tagging roll men. You have to be dropping into the paint, bumping bodies with guys constantly, because that's just what a five has to do. And I think if you can basically say, hey, go be the probably, I'm not going to say probably, the single most devastating weak side protector in this game.
Yeah.
Let Bryant kind of just, he doesn't have to be great, but just hold up a little bit at the, at the front of the rim. Just hold guys up a little bit, and then let him go in there and come in and be the weak side help guy and all that stuff. I mean, Bryant's been so good offensively for this team. That's why, because I saw a lot of people like, all right, Davis and Hachimura and LeBron, that's our new front court. That's going to play a lot together for certain. I might just keep Hachimura in that role coming off the bench, but you're talking come off the bench, but still play 30 minutes a night, which is really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I could see them going that route as well, particularly with how well Thomas Bryant has been playing. Probably his best game of the season just last night.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was unbelievable last night in that game. It was, and what a ridiculous turnaround. Because that's the kind of game, too. If I was a Lakers fan, I'd feel a little bit better because that feels like the kind of game over the last couple of seasons where it would have been like, that's it. We're going to lose.
Yeah.
We might lose by 50
Yep.
tonight. And they just kept going. And that hasn't always been their MO the last couple of years. Like, they're locked in, and now they're pushing. So, but should we get into the cap side of
Yeah,
this?
let's talk about the cap side of it, because this is important here for the long-term ramifications of this. What we've talked a lot about the Lakers cap space. I know you wrote a piece for Spot Track all about it. So what does this mean for the Lakers' future, for their flexibility? Assuming they want to hang on to Rui Hachimura, what happens here? Because I think this could go a long way towards informing what else they of what else they might do before the deadline here.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to note here is, right, and I've been hammering this, the Lakers are going to be somewhere probably between 30 and 35 million in cap space. Like that's been, and I generally kind of throw 33 just because it's nice and in the middle number there.
Right.
And that's also like when I get deep into my cap projections, that's generally where I land with them. So let's just say 33 million in cap space because that's what I had them at before this trade today. The high level is nothing changes with that. They have swapped an expiring contract for another expiring contract. If Hachimura shows up and it is like, oh my God, this was the most god awful fit possible. Well, then you're out using Kendrick Nunn's salary in another deal, and you're out 3 second rounders. We'll talk about that when we get to the Wizards side of the trade. Mm-hmm. But you took on no long term guarantee here with Hachimura, which is that's important to note, and I think is being missed a little bit because you can still wipe the slate clean if you want to. That said, in all the reporting, I mean, I think I've seen now 3 or 4 different people report, and this is where I want to know he can't do an extension. He's still on his rookie scale deal. I know that's been tweeted several times by different reporters. He can't. That deadline was way back in October.
A while ago. Yep.
Cannot do that, but he can be a restricted free agent. They can re-sign him to basically any contract they could have extended him to anyway. And the important thing for most people to notice, it doesn't really change a whole lot as far as the average fan is concerned, but it is important that it's not an extension, will be a new contract. So they could do things like add a trade bonus in there and stuff like that you can't necessarily do in extensions. So Hachimura comes. So let's say things are working out great. He's doing well. He has an $18.8 million cap hold this summer as a restricted free agent. The Lakers have to issue that, otherwise it becomes unrestricted, and then they have no ability to keep him.
Right.
That's then he could just walk and take whatever deal he wants with somebody else. So in this case, you add that 18.8 million. Well, the first initial thought that people have is, all right, well, so that takes us to 15 million in cap space or whatever it would be. Your challenge there is now that number is lower than the combined amount of the non-taxpayer and the biannual exception. So you add those back, and now all of a sudden you're an over the cap team. But it's already been painted, and hopefully folks are reading the article and seeing this. And I will say the Lakers folks who cover the team are doing a biased opinion, doing a really nice job of pushing that article to say, hey, this doesn't take us out of the cap space race. Because the important thing there is it doesn't, because what they could do is they're going to know you're going to get 30, 35 games here with probably 30, because it's probably going to be a couple days before he plays. So let's say somewhere in the 30 game range with Hachimura, they're going to really know, all right, we know how he fits here. How did it work? What does it look like? What do we want to do long term? And if it is, we want to sign him. And I put in the article, I just said the starting salary at 10 million, because I just kind of picked that out of that's kind of mid-level-ish. That's probably about where he was going to be at. If teams saw enough promise and felt like he was pretty good. Then what happens is that 18.8 million cap hold instantly replaced with his actual salary when he signs. Now all of a sudden that 18.8 is gone. It's only 10. Now you're at about 23 million. And that becomes then your real actual cap space number. And at that point, that 23 million for the Lakers is, all right, hey, we can that's enough to, it's not going to get you in the mix to go get superstar X.
No.
But
get Kyrie.
That Kyrie's out right
Yep.
at that point. But that does get you in the mix for, all right, we can get two good players, because that's essentially two mid-levels. And you get good players with the full mid-level. Now, they'll have to work around the hard cap and those kind of things if they do that. And they could potentially get there. Probably not. A lot of that depends on how much they re-sign Austin Reeves for, also a restricted free agent. But they should have enough flexibility to use the full 23 in cap space, then the room exception, all the stuff that they want to do without really triggering a hard cap if that's the direction they want to go. The other option, just to put it out there, is you basically keep everybody on the books. You keep the cap holds for everyone, operate as an over the cap team. You would still have the taxpayer mid-level, but what that opens you up to that is a little bit different is sign and trade possibilities and things like that. So then you're open to, all right, well, maybe you could work something where it's not going to be Russ on a $40 million deal in a sign and trade, but maybe you could do Russ on a $20 million deal in a sign and trade to bring something back to the roster and things like that. But that becomes, just that starts to get a little far down the fantasy land planning scenarios, but the flexibility is there. So if that's all too much, the main thing is the Lakers didn't really lose any of their high end flexibility for cap space. They didn't really lose all that much, even if Hachimura hits and they want to keep him, as long as they don't get stupid. You can't give him 18 to $20 million unless he has the best 30 game audition we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Then that becomes a different story. But you have to be balanced and smart about what you give him next. But it's all still right there for the Lakers to really do this. And I think in a much better way, because now you're building with James, Davis, Hachimura, Reeves, Christie, if you want to count them in there. That's kind of your core group. Now we got to add to that core group.
Yep.
And there's still going to always be a destination for 3-4 guys on veteran minimum contracts who are actually pretty good, but are like, hey, I'll take that to catch on. And because they're the Lakers, they should be a good team. The room exception of about 5.8 million is a little bit better spending power than, say, the Orlando Magic with the room exception. Like, it just is. It's guys are willing to look at that and take that. That won't, from an Orlando, the Charlotte, San Antonio, like, I'm not gonna take that. With the Lakers, you might get an actual real player with that. So that was a lot, but hopefully that clears things up a little bit.
So if they stay below the cap, you're essentially, if your numbers are right in terms of what Rui gets on his next deal, about, if it's like a 10 million or so, something in that range, you essentially have two mid-levels to use plus the room exception to use in terms of your spending power. Whereas if you go over the cap, then you're looking at a mid-level and a biannual to use. So less spending power there. But what does that do? Because a lot of Lakers fans are asking these questions. What does that do as far as retaining some of these, like Thomas Bryant, Austin Reeves, obviously a different case, but Thomas Bryant, Troy Brown, Lonnie Walker, players like that.
Yeah, so in the case of those guys, they only have non-bird rights on those guys anyway. So like in Bryant's case, coming off a minimum, that's nothing anyway, right? Like, that's not going to get you much. So what you're probably looking at is, if you looked at it and you built it out and you said, all right, we really want to keep Lonnie Walker, well, then you have the option to say, you know what, all right, what we're going to do is we're also going to keep his cap hold on the books. His cap hold is, let me make sure, I just had it pulled up, but is about 7.7 million. We're going to keep him on our books too, but we're going to sign him for 7 million. It's close, but that gives us a little bit more. So we're going to eat into a little bit of our cap space, but we do it this way. And you kind of arrange that. A guy like Thomas Bryant, you could keep that super tiny cap hold on there for a long time and kind of wait it out to see like, hey, is someone gonna give him more than another minimum deal?
Right.
My guess is you can't mess around with that one too much. He's shown enough, and
Somebody's going to pay him.
he's a big, somebody's gonna pay him. Bigs always get paid. No matter how much the league downsizes, every year big men get paid, and people are like, who's paying these guys? Because
Yep.
everybody still looks at it as we need a center. So that's where you got to be a little cautious, but re-signing those guys, you could either do it. We re-sign them out of that 23 million. We keep them on the books. You've got a lot of different ways you can kind of play with this to go some different ways. So I think, 23 million, maybe that becomes a little high if you're really intending to keep Walker and Bryant, guys like that. But it's probably not super out of range. The other nice thing is if you have the mid-level and the biannual, which is about, I'm just going to 11 million and 4 million just to make the math easy. You can't add those together and get a 15 million player. Whereas if you have 23 million in cap space, you can. You
Right.
could go get a
More
15 million player because you've got that. So that 23 million can go a long way because you could realistically probably split that up amongst two good players, but maybe even a third in there. And then again, that room exception, you're going to get that. So that's how I would be planning all this out. And having spilled all those virtual ink today and all these words here in this airspace, they're going to go and make some other trade that's going to completely
It's going to wipe out all the cap space.
here. Yep. Yeah, right. So, but that's what we've been talking about for a month or more is if you're making moves, you got to make a move for a guy you kind of like. And I like the Hachimura deal because there's really no risk involved here unless you super love second round picks, which I don't, because I think the Lakers have done a good job getting guys.
They
with
have
second
found
round
players
picks.
with the second round.
I just don't think they've done a good job with the contracts they give those guys. So
Correct.
I'm not super worried about them missing because I think they can do just as good a job getting similar-ish players on the undrafted market. I'm not, super worried about them being out 3 second-round picks, including 2 of them that are, who the hell knows what the draft will look like
2028 and 2029,
6 and 7 years from now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then in the case of Austin Reeves, they'll have early bird rights on him, so they should be in the driver's seat to
and we are going to do a show at some point. It'll probably honestly be post-trade deadline now, where we break down what does it look like, because he is Arenas eligible, yes. And that is, let's just say there's a decent chance that could come into play, but we'll get into what all that means for him, for the Lakers, for other teams. We will get into all that stuff.
All right. I think we can move on from this trade.
Well, I think we should do the Wizard side of it.
Okay. The Wizard side is pretty quick. So yes.
Yeah, it's very quick. Clearing a logjam at their forward position. This says to me, maybe they do feel pretty good about re-signing Kyle Kuzma.
I think they do.
My guess is what's going to ultimately happen there is Kuzma wants to be like courted and I want to be one of the top free agents and all those kind of things. And I think at the end of the day, the Wizards are going to say, that's cool, but how does like 25 million a year sound? And it's, you know what, that sounds pretty good. Let's get it done. Something in that range for him. And if you do that, you got him. I think they want to keep Porzingis. You've obviously got Bradley Beal long-term, but just looking at your forward position, you still have Denny Avdia, who they invested a high draft pick in, much like Hachimura, and Corey Kispert, another guy who was a mid first rounder. You can't continue to keep loading guys into the same couple of positions and then just moving on from all of them. So sometimes you move on from one to free up time for the others, and that's how you move it forward. So that's my guess where things are going to go with Washington. For them, 3 second-round picks. A lot of Wizards fans seem very disappointed with all we got was 3 seconds and Kendrick Nunn. But the reality is, if you wait too long, if you're at 2:30 on Thursday of the trade deadline, your offers might be 1 second because you why are you keeping him? Like you're in a tough spot. This different circumstances, but similar thing is the Suns can't wait too long to trade Jay Crowder unless it really is. They're like, whatever, we'll take whatever we can get.
Woj
because
noted that
that's what
there
happens.
was an incarnation of this that was a 3-team deal that featured
Saw
Phoenix
that.
as well.
Yeah. And I will say the deal hasn't gone final yet. So we'll see.
Correct.
And just our standard reminder, I already tweeted this, but our standard reminder, whether it's the trade deadline or the offseason or even at the draft, trades are official and done, and signings for that matter, when the team tweets about them. That's when everything is done and locked in. A lot of times you'll find out a little bit earlier because it might hit a transaction log or something like that. But you'll know it's done when a team tweets about it. 99% of the time. Every once in a while we get one of those screw ones where it's like, oh wait, there's a problem with the physical and that. But those are pretty rare.
Yeah, I'm checking in right now and just checking the Lakers notifications and all that kind
I
of
haven't
stuff.
seen
And
it
the
yet.
team has not sent out anything to us
So yeah,
officially announcing that it's done. So
yeah.
could
The
still
last
happen.
couple just pieces of bookkeeping on this trade. Lakers did add a little bit to their tax bill. They
Mm,
took on about $1 million in actual salary because of where they're at with the tax and penalties. That'll translate to about 3 million more. So, but not enough to really be all that worried about with that. And the Wizards, though, they cleared up about 1 million under the tax. They were only about 400,000
matters.
ish. Now they've got a little bit more flexibility if they want to do something else. So they could even take on a little bit more money. The Kendrick Nunn part of this for Washington, I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved in another deal. They can't obviously aggregate him or combine him with anybody. There's not enough time to do that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they move him, especially if somebody comes up needing a guard here in the next couple weeks. Maybe they move him. But I think there's a good chance he gets bought out because they don't need him. They've got guys that can play unless they suffer an injury themselves. There just really isn't a need for him on that team right now.
Yeah, I really think he's just salary ballast in
That's all
in
it
this
was.
deal. He's
Yep.
not. Yeah,
That's the exact term that I used in the article. As I
was
said,
it?
he's just salary ballast.
There
Yep.
you go. There
Yep.
you go.
Mind meld.
That's right. That's
All
right.
right, let's do it. This is not the only news we have today.
No, it
There's
is
quite a bit of other
not.
stuff.
Somehow we've done almost a full show here, but we have plenty more to get into.
Get
Um,
super excited, man. It's our first real trade.
that's
I was
right.
so
That's
fired up.
right.
I was like, I think I was firing texts off to you like left and right. Like, I can't wait to talk about this on the show.
This we live for this stuff. It's so much
Yep.
fun.
So good.
I guess let's jump to the other LA team. The Clippers are not considering trading Kawhi. I mean, this to me is kind of a duh. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but and I know there's Kawhi's been out of the lineup quite a bit and all of that, but like what are you're not it's like the Lakers with Anthony Davis. You're not getting enough to make it worthwhile to trade
Yeah.
away Kawhi because of the injury history.
That would have to be one of those ones like where we're literally like, holy crap, we need to record right now
Yeah.
because this was such a unexpected blockbuster thing. And those do happen. I just don't think this is going to be the one. And what's funny is the Clippers, like they played yesterday against Dallas and really kind of showed like when they care, like they're very good. They're so good. Kawhi looks pretty good to me. I think
Mm.
he's really looking good. That said, I still expect them to continue to throw games away and float somewhere in that 5 to 8 range in the West, and be a playoff team. But I really gotta believe I don't want to be Denver or Memphis or New Orleans, a team that's had a pretty nice season. And then I'm all right, game one, first round of the playoffs, fired up, and I look over, it's Kawhi and PG and John
Right.
Wall off the bench and Norman Powell and all these guys, because it just does feel a little bit like, man, what like this sucks. But it's just I don't know. I'm struggling to take them super serious. But then you watch them play a game like yesterday, and it feels like, wow, this team really is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've been talking about them since the offseason. They've got plenty of talent, they've got plenty of depth. They can be a very difficult out at any point, but like you said, they've underachieved so far. Um, but I don't think they need to be in the business of trading away unless they're just convinced this simply cannot work, which I don't think that's where they should be right now.
Or you had some medical intel of like this
Correct.
dude's like got a year left and it's all falling apart, then maybe. But I think this is one where with him and Paul George, the Clippers have more or less now made their bed, and it'll be until those contracts expire, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
All right. The Hornets would like to re-sign PJ Washington. We've talked about Jalen McDaniels, what he can do, him potentially being out there on the market. It sounds like Charlotte is leaning more towards hanging on to PJ Washington. Now, Charlotte, they've got, I guess let's just lump all this together. They're also willing to talk trade for Hayward, Rozier, Oubre. This is one of those teams to definitely keep an eye on because there's a number of names. PJ Washington could be in the mix, but sounds like they would like to hang on to him. But the Hornets have plenty of reason to try to make some trades here at the deadline, add some future assets. We know that they're going to go tank mode here and do what they can to increase their odds of landing Wembanyama.
Yeah, I think on the first part, the PJ Washington, Mark Stein noted that over the weekend in his newsletter is really good, especially at this time of year. He's been publishing, it feels like 2-3 times a week with like little snippets of stuff. But one of the things in there was part of that is because the Miles Bridges situation remains so unsettled, and it was the Hornets were kind of open to let's move on from Washington because Bridges is going to be the guy we're going to kind of prioritize because there is overlap between those two guys. They've played them together a lot over the years, but now the Hornets pushed back very hard and very publicly on the reports they were thinking about signing Bridges. So that says to me, yeah, let's keep PJ Washington and we'll go. The Bridges situation, my guess is, will resolve at some point this summer. One way or another for the Hornets side of it. Either they do sign him and say, all right, we're gonna take the heat that comes with signing him to a new deal, or they just cut him loose completely and let him go and reset things. But Washington there, Stein was also said they're listening on Hayward, Rozier, and Oubre. Hey, I'm listening if anybody wants to trade a Bentley for my Honda CRV. Like that's cool too. I mean, I don't know where any of this is going with the. I mean, Hayward's deal's too big. Maybe the summertime when it's expiring. Rozier's all right, but that stuff. And Oubre's hurt. That's the problem with Oubre. He's got a torn, had surgery for a torn, I think it was a ligament in his left shooting hand. So I'd be very cautious if he normally I would have been like, yeah, Kelly Oubre makes a lot of sense. 12.6 million expiring player. That's great, but I don't know. I don't see a whole lot with could happen, unless that becomes like one of those real big two teams are really resetting their path moving forward, then maybe that's how you see a couple of those guys go. And let's go back to the Kawhi thing just real quick. Law Murray of The Athletic was the one who I think had that Kawhi report.
All right, let's jump to your current hometown, Orlando. Yeah. Jonathan Isaac, welcome back. It's been over 2 years. You see Jonathan Isaac, but he is getting back. Did you wind up? I know we talked about it like last week. I think it was. Did you wind up checking out that?
I did. I went to the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, he looked really good. Was it? No, I went to the first one. Yeah, it was the first one when he played. Looked really, really good. Looked. He was very tired after his first initial stint. He was struggling a little bit, huffing and puffing, but then he was looked good physically. I mean, this dude's still super duper long. Gets out, he's like a half step from closing out to any shooter from the block because that's just how big he is. I mean, it's just this is the running joke for a few years was the Magic's obsession with length,
right?
And it's kind of true. I mean, there's going to be times where we're going to put him and like Bol and Mo Bamba maybe on the floor together, and it's going to be like, all right, just block out the sun, guys, because no one I don't know if it's goaltending if you're literally just standing there.
They're going to go all in on what's the strategy where you're like 10 feet away from the shooter and you jump to try to block
the cornet contest.
The cornet contest. That's what it is. the cornet contest. I couldn't remember the name for it.
Yeah, I call it the corn test because I think that's
like
just more fun. But it's yes. But Jonathan Isaac back. My guess is for the Magic, this is good. Again, we've got about 35 games. He's probably not going to play back to back, so probably miss a game or two, just knowing how these things go. But give us 35 games to look at a mostly healthy roster because what they're doing now is evaluating who fits moving forward. And not only that, who fits with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner? Because those are the guys. Those are our, those are our planets, right? And everything else is going to orbit around those two guys. Like it's got to work around them. So it's but yeah, it's going to be good to see him back. August 2nd, 2020 in the bubble was the last time he played in an NBA game.
2023.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, welcome back, Jonathan Isaac. Welcome back. The Jazz expected to listen to offers for most of their roster, just not Lauri Markkanen or Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
The two guys that most teams would probably be
Which is
after.
very key, and I think some people missed this in Mark Stein's report.
I
So,
did. I saw a lot of people throwing out, they go on
yeah,
the trade machine, and I
yeah.
saw a lot of marketing trades. A lot of, can we get Walker Kessler? A
Yeah.
lot of that kind of stuff. And I'm
You
like,
get the same thing
no.
I get, right? Like you get
Yep.
tag, like they reply to the tweet and then they
Yes.
tag you, and it's
Mhm.
like, hey, think the Celtics could get Markkanen? And I was like, I mean, yeah, if they want to trade like really good players and a whole bunch of draft picks, sure, but they're not going to do that, so no. Like
Right.
it's just kind of funny.
But so, all right. So then we're talking Mike Conley, Malik Beasley, Jordan Clarkson, perhaps Jared Vanderbilt. Right? I mean, those are
Rudy
the types of
Gay,
players.
yeah,
Rudy Gay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are the types of guys we're talking about.
Kelly Olynyk.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's right. Kelly Oubre is a name that has popped up
Kelly
quite a bit
Olynyk.
recently.
Olynyk.
Oh, Olenek. Yeah. I flip flop
Kelly
those two.
O's. Yeah.
I flip flop those two all the time.
It's kind of funny because
It drives me crazy.
like more opposite guys.
I know, right?
That'd be like if I was like, I constantly get Boban and Jose Alvarado confused.
It's the Kelly O, and then
I know, I get it.
I
understand.
I go off the rails
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah. I had I had that. I could not keep this is so silly. I could not keep the Jalen and Jaden McDaniels
Oh, yeah.
clear. Do you know I finally did it?
Hmm.
Charlotte has an L in it, so Jalen is on Charlotte. Now that may only work for a couple more months, maybe only a couple more weeks. If he gets traded, then I'm gonna have to come up with another device to remember that. But that's how I finally was like, all right, I gotta come up with a way because I cannot keep these two guys straight. It is also absolutely maddening. I watched the Thunder the other day, and it was like the Simpsons joke where it's the guy who does the is it Andres Cantor who does the soccer. This is like a 25-year-old Simpsons episode.
Yeah.
And he's doing a soccer game and he's like, it's something like, Silva passes to Silva. Passes to Silva. He passes it back to Silva. And it's like, that's like sometimes you're watching a Thunder game and it's like Williams gets it to Williams, gets it. Oh, good screen from Williams. And it's like, no more. And you can't have two with the same first name.
You're right.
If they
It shouldn't be allowed. It should be against league rules.
Exactly. There should be a league rule on that. For even if it's nothing more than for idiots like me, or the player has to join the team and upon signing change his name to like Jones or something.
It's like on The Office where Erin, her real first name is Kelly, and then they had that problem where Kelly Kapoor kept responding, and so then she had to go by her middle name.
Perfect.
Like maybe they need to do that. They need to go to middle name.
I can't keep them straight. But anyway, I don't even remember. Oh, we were talking about the Jazz. I was like, I don't even know where we got here.
We're talking about the Jazz.
Yeah. Nothing to do with the Thunder or The Office or 25-year-old Simpsons episodes where half our listeners weren't even alive. This makes sense to an extent. I do wonder a little bit, is this like last year? It was all kind of like it got a couple of things happened with the Kings Pacers trade last year. It was like, oh, the Kings are blowing it up. They're moving Halliburton. And it really wasn't that. It was one of those rebalancing trades. And and I'll continue to repeat it forever, is I felt like the Kings got very unfairly killed in that trade. I love Tyrese Halliburton, but it turned into like Domantas Sabonis sucks deal. Like that's like what they lost so much of the analysis turned into. I wonder if the Jazz could do a deal like that where it is they make a trade where they send some guys out, bring some other guys in, but they're not punting on the rest of the season either. Like it's not a full scale, like, all right, we're shutting it down to tank type of trade.
It's they're sitting in the 9 seed. And I think that's part of this where people are going, oh, wait, our early indication of the Jazz, our early thoughts on the Jazz where this is going to be team tank. Is that going to turn out to really be correct? And so I think that's wrapped up in what's causing people
100%
to sell off talent and go that way.
I'm guilty of it. I mean, I figured when they traded Gobert and Mitchell, I was like, all right, so Rudy Gay has no reason to be on this team. And half the guys that get back don't really make a lot of sense. And, whether it was they didn't like the deals at the time or whatever it is, but it's Danny Ainge. And if he has a chance to, hey, this maybe doesn't make us better today, but it'll make us better down the line, he'll do that. But that's also why they're saying, we're not moving Markkanen and we're not moving Walker Kessler, which if you haven't watched, Walker Kessler is awesome.
He blocks everything.
Yeah. it's like they literally traded Rudy Gobert and did not get worse in terms of rim protection. Like he's that good. Like, and you save $28 million a year by getting him in place of Rudy Gobert. So just
Wolves fans are
unbelievable.
not
I know. Yeah,
are not
they're
doing
like,
well, right?
thanks,
With that.
thanks. We appreciate that. Hey, enjoy Anthony Edwards. Did you see his thing about dunking on Şengün? Did you see the quote?
No, what
So
do you
he's
say?
like, so he dunked on him, and then he said, when we came out of halftime, he's like, I told KJ Martin he's playing too far back, so I'm gonna get him again. And then he did, he got him again. And then he's like, but shout out to that guy. He goes, I don't know how to say his name, but number 28, that dude can play. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, man, I love Anthony Edwards. He's so fun.
He is, and did well in the in that.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, what was it? The Bo Cruz movie. I don't remember.
Yes,
I don't remember.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
As the bad guy, yeah,
Oh yeah, he was great. He was
bad guy.
great.
Yeah, I guess. Like, yeah, he was the bad guy, right? He was the
Yeah,
villain.
he was the antagonist.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump. So the Jazz are willing to trade most of their roster, but we want to finish up with this. The Bucks, the Houston Rockets, give us a first for Eric Gordon. They've been screaming this for years now, and the Bucks said, "Here's 4 seconds."
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that didn't get done. Like 4 seconds is a lot, and so I wanted to put this into like a bigger conversation on the market itself. Does the Lakers trade for Rui Hachimura for 3 seconds? Does that to some degree reset the market? And what does it mean in relation to Eric Gordon?
I think it could for these kind of mid-range role player type guys. It could be a little bit like, okay, if they're offering 4 seconds, you might want to get it because
Yeah.
there may not be a first. Now, if you're Houston and you're like, we're happy to keep him, I don't know that they are. There's Tim McMahon had some reporting of like James Harden really likes to play with him, and if they're serious about that, that maybe could be a thing. But I think it really is. As I look at this with this whole 4 seconds thing becomes a wow, that's a lot. Like we're tossing a lot that direction there, and that's something where it's like, wow, that's maybe you should go that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Because it may
more
not
than I
get
was
better.
expecting.
Yeah,
What's it?
it may not get better.
Yeah.
You can hold out, and then again, you may be sitting there, and the Bucks may have by that point moved on. I do wonder, is there a little bit of, because it can't just be 4 seconds, there would have to be some salary matching involved. Was there something where it's like, we don't want to take back this contract in a trade for Gordon or something along those lines? But to me, this says the Bucks are getting creative, right? It's they will bully over with quantity over quality if nothing else, because we'll see. And sometimes adding those second round picks just to add them to your stash is not, it's not a bad thing. It's never a bad idea.
A lot of times we see in the NBA second round picks are how deals get done, right?
Mhm.
They're what
Yep.
gets used to grease the wheels, that and cash being thrown in order to make moves. And it doesn't mean a second round pick is the big move, but sometimes it's you get enough of these and you can make the smaller moves that become a big move. So I don't look at a lot of people when I see second round picks, people just throw them into trades like they're nothing. And they're
Mhm.
not. They do
Yeah.
matter around the NBA. They're not nothing. They're not obviously not as
Sure.
valuable as a top 5 pick or something. Like
Yeah.
nowhere near it, but
And
they do have
our
value.
our buddy Eric Pincus coined the term nothing something, which was the idea of the top 55, because those are just thrown in to make the
Correct.
trade work because each side has to send something. But yeah, this is not that. This would be, hey, we're going to give you 4 picks and then figure it out. I think what gets lost is people like, yeah, but you can't package them together and go get into like a go trade up for a first, because this isn't the NFL. That doesn't happen that way because it's only a two round draft. There's only 60 players, and by the time we're really after 45, it's like, all right, do we think this guy could be a good fit on our G League team?
Right.
Those kind of things.
It's not like you can take the 4 seconds and turn them into a number 9 overall pick or something like that. Nobody's doing that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps things up for today. Again, fun day. We actually had a trade go down, or well, not officially official yet, but we're waiting on word on that. But Rui Hachimura to the Lakers, plenty of other things going on around the trade market. And of course, we are still just under 2 weeks or just under 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. So still plenty of time for more stuff to go on the market. Hopefully this trade getting done does open things up a little bit. Around
let's
league.
go. Keep them coming.
Certainly
Let's get a bunch flowing through here now.
That's
over
right.
the next couple weeks.
I've been worried that we would get a dud of a trade deadline, And I'm hoping that, we get this and maybe a couple other things come through and the dam bursts and we get a bunch of stuff happening.
I still think where you've got, I mean, I was talking to folks just this weekend. There's like 8, 9, 10 teams that are like, yeah, we can win this thing. Like we're close enough that we can really make a run here. As long as we get healthy and get right, and all of those teams are kind of like, we can add something at the deadline. Just that doesn't always see. This is a good example. I don't know how many people would have had Wizards and Lakers on the well, there's an obvious trade partner.
The bingo card. Yeah.
Is that are the Wizards really sellers? Because they're kind of just outside the play. But sometimes it's, hey, we make a swap to reset and rebalance. And sometimes those trades, happen too. So that's what this was. And hopefully, yeah, you're right. I hope that starts leading to more and more deals.
Yep. Let's get it done. Let's go. More fun. All right, everybody. Make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office Show over on YouTube, as well as the podcast feed on Apple
Telling
Podcasts,
your friends,
Spotify. Yes, please tell your friends. Let them know. Come watch the show. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.